I know I've been effective so far because I can tell that I've scared the shit out of a lot of you because the men's room stinks. And for those of you that don't believe me, I have at this seminar to a KPMG partner had him shite in his pants as I spoke to him. And he wrote me a letter to the God's Truth, and I have the letter, and there's a few people in this audience that know what I'm talking about. He wrote me a letter on KPMG stationery telling me as much, which I have in my trophy room. One would think, do we have any KPMG people here in the room? Do we have any Big Five people here in the room? So I can slag them all off, get it out of the way. Okay. Now, summary of the 15 keys for super success. 1, being a high-performance person is categorically not for everyone. And that goes without saying. And anybody that tells you any different, 1 isn't a high-performance person, and 2 hasn't been around high-performance 3, and 3 is crazy. 2, this is not a part-time profession. Being a super successful high-performance person is a full-time endeavor. And unless it's a full-time, 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 52-week a year project, the probabilities of you being successful at a high level are greatly diminished, if not impossible. 3, you cannot have it all. There's an interesting question in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill when Andrew Carnegie, the great industrialist of the last century, sent Napoleon Hill to interview with the 500 most wealthy people on the planet to write a book that was finally in the form of Think and Grow Rich. It took him 20 years. He didn't get paid, Napoleon Hill. Only 3 of 500 almost had peace of mind. Tom Edison, John Burroughs, and Andrew Carnegie, until he tried to give all his wealth away. By almost having peace of mind, I equate that in today's language, having it all. So if 497 out of 500 didn't have peace of mind, don't expect that you're going to have peace of mind. You must change, and you should be underlined, because the good news is you're on the job, and the bad news is you're on the job. It's up to you. As I've already said, you're self-made. Only successful people talk about it, though. You cannot listen to the people that have not been successful, and I coin them being the morons of this world. And the morons might be well-educated, maybe the city gents, the landed gentry. They take a lot of different forms. But the bottom line is you can't listen to them and be a successful, high-performance person. You are who you associate with. I used to do another exercise. I don't do it anymore. I used to go to see who you sat with at lunch. And do the poor bastards all sit together? And do the few wealthy ones sit together? And you can figure this out for yourself. I don't have to tell you. Think about who you sat with, unless there was only one seat left and you sat your butt down because it was the only one available. I can tell at the castle when I walk in the room where they're standing, if they're standing in the drawing room or if they're standing in the library. Are they standing or sitting? Are they near the drinks table or are they near the fireplace? And all those little places are comfort zones for one reason or another. And I can tell just by where you stand when I walk in a room. As Socrates and Dan Peña have said, modeling is the easiest way to get to high-performance activities. Find somebody that has already been there, done that, and mimic or model his or her activities. Get yourself a mentor. At lunch, 2 of my former colleagues reminded me that my only living mentor is getting old. He's going to have another birthday pretty soon. He's already in his 80s, and we were talking about what I'm going to do when he's gone. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to think about what I'm going to do as long as he's living right now. But get yourself a mentor. You have to get through the feeling false expectations appearing real. Somehow you have to bust through that mindset that we've been raised with, that our parents taught us and our grandparents taught our parents. Somehow you have to overcome the fear of rejection. Somehow you have to overcome the fear of worrying about what other people think, be that your significant other, your brother, your mother. You have to get through that fear. Without getting through that fear, there's no chance of you becoming a high-performance person. Number 10, practice being super successful even when you're not. I've told you in several different examples this morning that I practiced even before I actually did the act, so it was almost like deja vu. I had been there, done that. I had a sense of comfort. I had a sense of well-being because I had done it over and over and over again in my mind, sometimes in front of the mirror. It's one of the things I do when I'm on long plane flights, is I practice things that high-performance activities that I haven't done yet. Number 11, perception is reality. From what you look like when you walk through the door, the first time you have, and again, you only have one time to make a first impression, and as we'll talk about now after lunch, surrounding yourself with other high-performance people, be it solicitors and or accountants and other professional advisors, the very best you can't afford, but perception is reality. From how you comb your hair, for those of us that are losing it, not much. You don't have to worry as much about how we comb our hair, but the perception. I can't stress that enough. Perception is reality. A couple of people came up to shake hands with me during lunch. One of them didn't, or I can't remember. It was one or two of them didn't shake hands with me because they said their hand was wet. It's a telltale sign. It's a telltale sign. I mean, go like this. I mean, dry your hands off. Number 12, playing not to lose, but playing to win. As I told you, the Verdier is one of the two things that the Verdier family, and by the way, husband-wife teams don't work very often. I've only seen them work once or twice in 30 years in the real world of commerce. But as George Verdier found when he first met me some 6 years ago, that he had been playing not to lose in recent years up until then. And now he plays to win. And when I visit him at his big mansion estate in Potomac, I feel very gratified that I've impacted his life, as I have some of the people in this room, including Stuart Goldsmith, in a positive way. I've also impacted a hell of a lot of people in a negative way because people... The failing in attending things like this is you're going to pick and choose the things that are most comfortable for you, and you're not going to do the things that are least comfortable for you. And by definition, ladies and gentlemen, you're zigging when you should be zagging. This is a full-time deal. You can't just say, well, I like this, like a menu, and figure, oh, I feel all right. I'll have a bit of that and a bit of this. This isn't a Chinese menu. You must have a dream. You must have a dream, otherwise you can't have a dream come true, as they said in South Pacific, the great musical. Many of you, your dreams you haven't seen for many, many years. And that's why you're struggling, you're laboring, and you're at a crossroads. Many of you are at a crossroads. As I talked to you earlier, people make massive change in their life, either out of inspiration or desperation. Which one of those two roads are you going down currently? 14, you got to have passion. You have to have passion. If you don't have passion, you can't make any of the previous 13 work, and you certainly can't make the program work. And it's extremely important. I can't speak highly enough about it. And 15, and last, the high-performance person is laser beam focused on successes and takes action. And remember, they focus on the few, not the many. For those of you that are taking action, you have to take action on the few, 1 or 2 or 3 things, not the 10 or 15 or 20 things. You must take action now. There's a slide coming up late today that tells you if you don't take action within a certain period of time, the probabilities of you succeeding at a high level are virtually none. Those are the 15, my 15 keys that I base my career on. More importantly, the careers of virtually every high-performance man, woman, and child that I have ever been exposed to personally, or ever read about, or ever heard about, follows some derivative of those 15. Full stop. Now, let's talk about achieving your own quantum leap. And I call them the practical steps for achieving your dream. Because if it's not your dream, you will struggle, you will labor. It will be tough as hell for you to get from day to day. Let's talk about the 3 C's of making money. To make a ton of money in your life, there are only 3 ways to do it. And a similar speech is given at the Harvard Business School when you start the Harvard Business School graduate school. Those 3 ways are crime, chance, you luck, you win the lottery, you're married, or commerce. Well, let's put it this way. Crime isn't worth it for me. For some of you in the audience, it might be worth it, but it's certainly not for me. And by the way, the very best criminals in this world are high-performance people. Saddam Hussein is a high-performance person. Stalin, Hitler are high-performance people. High performance doesn't mean good. It just means operating at whatever they do at the highest level possible. So if you're going to be a bum asshole, you can still be a high-performance person. Chance cannot be relied upon. Over the average lifetime, good and bad luck tend to even out, leaving a net effect of 0. There's a few people I know that the only luck they've had is bad luck in recent years, so it may take a long time to net out to 0. And that just leaves business, commerce, every day of working, toiling in the trenches of commerce, the trenches of the city or the trenches of wherever your business endeavor leads you. Now, within commerce, the legitimate way, the legitimate of the 3 C's, there's 2 main ways of making megabucks. If you're Madonna or some world-known, top-notch athletic star, you're famous, you live off royalties, etc. But I mean, there's a handful of those in the country. Or start, buy a business, build it up, sell it, or float it, and do it over and over again. And that's what we're going to focus on this afternoon. It's not that some of the singers in the audience might not be as good as Madonna or some of the athletic people that excel in athletic prowess, but that's not what I'm here to teach. I certainly, I forget who told me that better not give up my day job. They heard me sing. Where was that? I can't remember where it was, but some place recently I was trying to sing along with some national anthem and the people around me all turned silent. And I'm looking around, what the hell happened? They said, Dan, don't give up your day job because you couldn't sing your way out of anything. Okay. Now, most of you with a business should go home. Now, this is what you're going to ascertain after today, this afternoon. Most of you ought to just go home and lock the door and close it up. Why? Because basically you bought yourself a job. Not a cash-generating money pump. Your business will never make you any real money in the tens of millions. Also, you are not passionate about your business. Now, remember earlier I was saying I like to be first or different. Remember the halal food example? 1.7 billion Muslims. Big market. Second, 40 to 95% profit margins. Why do I like big margins? Because then I don't have to be so smart running the business. Third, be first or be different. How many of you in this audience are first or different in your business with huge margins and a big market? I know the answer. How many of you are passionate about what you do? And I'm getting ahead of myself, but how many of you would buy your business now if you had an opportunity to buy it? I know that answer. Forget about it, as they say in Brooklyn. Better you should have a gun than a bullet in your head. What does it take to be the kind of individual, the kind of entrepreneur that I'm talking about? The willingness to stand alone. See how many ticks you can put by these for yourself. The confidence to challenge the conventional. The unswerving commitment to vision. The passion for being on top. I'm not talking about that schoolboy top, the public school kids. I'm not talking about that top. And the courage to do as you dream. How many of those can you tick? Put a check mark by. If you can't put a check mark by all of them, something is desperately wrong with what you're doing. By the look on your face, and I'm blinded slightly by the lights, yes, you've told me the answer. And for the very young in the audience, look around you and see the old ones and look at their faces. Quiet desperation, I think. I know. I will now share with you my 8 strategies for creating or building a super successful business. And these are learned by me over 30 years, over 65,000 business decisions in those 30 years, involved in over 700 business transactions, involving many billions, thousands of business meetings, and more than 16 million miles on planes. You have never met, nor probably never will meet anybody as experienced as I and what we're about to talk about. And when I sit at a meeting in the city with Freshfields and PricewaterhouseCoopers and McKinsey and God knows who else, and there's 10 or 15 professionals around the room, without a doubt, I have more experience than the whole goddamn table. Cumulatively. So listen well. Power strategy number 1. It all starts with a dream about which you are passionate. I said this earlier in different ways. If you're not passionate about what you do, now, let's look at some examples. How is it that I was able to buck the trend in the industry that I was once a very integral part for 8 years in a row and build a natural resource dynasty? Because I ate it, I slept it, I loved it like my first child. There was nothing more important. There was a time in my life that I would have taken a bullet for that company proudly. And as my wife would say if she were here, it came Great Western, 2 children because the other one came way late, Driller, my famous Great Dane, his money, and then me. I was in the top 10. There was nothing more important to me. And I'm not suggesting the order of importance that you should follow that order, because some of it would be revolting to you. But I'm telling you, that's how passionate I was about my dream. Another man with passion. And they had a special last night on Channel 4, Channel 3 about John Kennedy and the assassination with Jackie Kennedy. And in 1961, when President Kennedy said, before the end of this decade, we will land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. And it also said before the Russians, by the way. There was no NASA as we know it today. We didn't have the power in America to get a monkey off the ground, let alone men, even though people like Pete Conrad were small and demure in size. He lived that dream until he died, and then the United States carried on. People like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Pele. They dreamt of greatness athletically. Michael Jordan saw himself as a little boy in the ghetto he comes from, or came from, winning multiple world championships in basketball. Pele saw himself, and I don't know what position he played in football, saw himself kicking goals in the World Cup and winning. Tiger Jones sees himself winning more major championships than Jack Nicklaus. High performance people get paid for performing their hobbies. This is like a hobby to me. When I was building Great Western and some of the other successful companies I've been involved in, I didn't look at it as work, as you do, because I enjoyed it. It was like a hobby to me. Part of these power strategies is surrounding yourself with the perception of success. How do you do that in the shortest amount of time? You go find people like Konstantin Gratsos, Jerry Orman, Jim Newman, and you have them become part of your dream. Here are 3 ideas for tapping into what your dream may be. Push your boundaries by trying a lot of different things. You never know what new thing might turn out to be your passion. Well, at some of your ages, you've only got one more shot at it. So I wouldn't try too many different things. If you haven't figured out, in sex, there's certain positions you like more than others. You've already figured that out, I hope. So for those of you that are close to my age, if you haven't already figured it out, I just take a shot at one now. And remember, a rut is a grave where the end's knocked out. And most people live in a rut all their life. They do the same things over and over. I already gave you examples of my father. Same holiday. I saw you all cringe when I said that because I know you take the holiday at the same time as my dad does. I see a couple of brave souls saying, "Oh, no, I don't, Dan. No, I don't." 2 out of 120. That's great. We'll shoot the rest of you during the break. Number 2, think back over your life to the times when you were really happy. Doing something you loved. This isn't when you were an adolescent in the bathroom either. Use this to point to the type of person you are and what you might be passionate about doing. What do you really enjoy doing? Some of you don't like sailing. Maybe you could form a passion, a business idea around sailing. Some sort of sport, painting. You'll find it a lot easier to get up in the morning and work the amount of hours with the discipline that's necessary to be a high-performance person if you enjoy what you do. I had a scholarship to go to law school when I was in university. After I finally figured out how to graduate, I had a scholarship to go to law school when I was in graduate school. And I talked 4 or 5 of my friends, and we were all going to go to law school, guys. It's a license to steal. We'll get that certificate, and we'll just rip them. I'm the only one that got a scholarship, and the other guys went to law school, and they're lawyers today, and I didn't go to law school. And whenever we get together, boy, you bastard, you talk to now we're doing something we don't like. I had the passion, and I've had that gift. I can sell people on my passion. And that's the next level beyond this seminar. Taking your passion and selling your passion to somebody else. This is one of my favorites, and this is actually something, not just the only thing I've learned from Stuart, but this is a good analogy. Write your own epitaph. Imagine you have a chance to write the words on your gravestone. What would you put if you died today? Here lies, so-and-so, Rufus Doofus, public school prat, who is best remembered for his antics in the bathroom. What would you put on your gravestone? I shudder to think. I shudder to think. This will help you get real focused. Not focusing on death, but focusing on what people would say about you, or you would say about yourself after death. As Martin Luther King Jr., this is not the current Martin Luther King, this is his father, said, if a man hasn't discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live. Most people that you know don't know anything, that they're willing to die for. Obviously, during wartime, this country is a perfect example. You rally around the country and you do what you have to do to break free of tyranny, etc., etc. So this country knows how to have passion. It used to rule 2/3 of the planet. There were some passionate fellows and ladies, a few of the queens, or a couple of the queens anyway. Okay. Another way of looking at it, and this is Zachary Scott. He's a famous tough guy, American cowboy actor. He said, as you grow older, you'll find that only things that you regret are the things you didn't do. When my grandmother, who died at 90, almost 95, and I spent the last few moments or lucid moments before she expired, all she talked about was the things she didn't do in life. Here's a woman who was a great-grandmother, had accomplished a lot, but that's all she talked about to me. And one of the things that she had the most remorse about is not reconciling with my grandfather 60 years before, because the family, la familia, said it wasn't the right thing to do. And now she's died lonely by herself with just her grandson, who doesn't have that much empathy, holding her hand. Dan Peña looks at it a different way. Just think of your hell. This would be great. I'd like to go down the aisle. I wish this was a longer seminar. Just think of your hell as watching an endless movie of your life, what it might have been if you had taken the actions to make it happen and make it different. Everybody in this room, man, woman, and child, has got something in their life that they wish they had done, but they didn't. No question. Just think about it. If that's what you had to look at for eternity, like a video that just kept going around and around and around and around. It's not too late, even for the old duffers in the audience. It's not too late to live life on purpose. It's not too late. And anybody that says it's too late, let them step out in front of the first lorry that drives by during the next break. In fact, I'll help them. Always aim to have more dreams than memories. Remember earlier, I measure organizations when I go in to talk to people by the amount of dreams they have vis-a-vis or in reference to the memories. I know a company's dead in the water if they're talking about all the great things they've done. Jack Welch, who in my judgment is one of the great chief executives of all time in this century, who heads up General Electric, he doesn't talk about any of the past laurels, any of the accolades the company's had. He's been Chief Executive of the Year in the United States like 13 of the last 15 years, or 14 of the 16 he's been CEO of General Electric. And all he talks about is the future. All he talks about is the future. Bill Gates talks about the future. Richard Branson talks about the future. Once we have a dream and a passion, here's a good business tip. Thank you. Thanks. I need to have these full of gin. Be first or be different. Now, a week ago, I used to do an exercise. Now, see, I've learned over the years that people don't like to be embarrassed and breathing through their rectum. So I don't do any of these exercises anymore. But I used to go down the rows and tell me how you're first, how you're different. It was just a debacle. It was one of the most debilitating things to witness. And I filmed some of these, but we don't do that anymore. Because even though virtually a majority of the product that we have developed over the years have won Telly Awards, which is the equivalent of the Academy Awards in the movies. But I mean, people from an artistic point of view and material, but people don't like seeing people get the shit kicked out of them and crying. You know, people don't like, I mean, you watch that video one time, that training video, and then the only thing you say is, thank God it's them, better than me. Be first or be different. And if you can't be in your business, can you change your business today to be different? Because by definition, being first is different. Can you? If the answer is no, then something's wrong. And believe me, and this is what the Dutch hate when I get on their back when I'm going to the Netherlands next. In the next millennium, believe you me, at the end of the day, as one of my Yorkshire partners would say, you're going to be fucked if you don't change, and you can't be different. I mean, the internet is proving that every single day. Power Strategy 2 still. James Morse, which I also think is an Englishman. The only sustainable advantage comes from out-innovating the competition. When was the last time you did anything innovative in your business? Now, I bet you can think of innovative things your competition have done like that. Again, the internet, classic example. I used to think that the internet wasn't going to last. Boy, was I wrong. A fad is a wave in the ocean. The trend is the tide. And that tide is over the entire planet now. It is estimated by the year 2010, 20 to 25% of all commerce done on this planet is going to be e-commerce. How prepared are you to compete? The answer to that question, I hope for your sake, I hope for Britain's sake, is you're ready to compete at a high level. I know different, though. Now, interesting statistic, and it's very much analogous to what I'm talking about now. 33% of gross national product in the United States comes from franchises, like McDonald's franchise, Burger King, etc. And franchises came within 11 measly votes of being turned down by Congress in the 50s. If 11 votes had shifted, franchising would have been considered and voted illegal. And now it represents a third of all business in America. I don't know what the percentage is here, but I know it's going up, and it's really going to go up in Europe. The old Eastern Europe, moving towards the Russian side of, it's not called Europe, it's called Asia. But just think of the things that have changed, and there's some more interesting statistics. But it's different than capturing the imagination of the public. It's not the same as revolutionizing it. We've had video phones for 10 or 12 years. Does anybody in the room have a video phone? Does anybody in the room know anybody that's got a video phone? 1, 2 in the room. I actually said this recently, and the guy had a video phone. And he got all excited. He says, "Do you have one, Dan?" Because he wanted somebody to talk to. You were there, Barry. I said, "No, I don't have one. I never got one because I didn't think anybody would stand in front of it naked or anything, so I don't give a shit what they look like when I'm talking to them." And I was right. And of the video phones out, I forget the exact statistic, of the video phones that have been made and bought and they're used, 92% of them are used by men, not women. Hair curlers, I can go on and on. The big slice of cake goes to those who create, the crumbs go to those who copy. Remember, first or different. It's an extremely important concept. Allow food. I talked to a couple of my Muslim friends during lunch, and they were surprised. I don't know if surprised is the right word, but because I know nothing about being a Muslim. I didn't know I can't spell halal, and I'm not sure it's spelled right on the slide. But the Muslim communities even talk about halal food. So every great idea hasn't been thought of, is my point. If old Roman Catholic Dan, altar boy Dan, can come up with a halal deal, you can as well. And up my part of the world, up in Scotland, you don't brag a lot about being a Catholic. And on Sunday Mass, Christmas Mass in Scotland, there's about, there must be 25 of us. In regular Masses, maybe 8 or 10. And the closest town to me is a town called Forfar, which is halfway between my home and Glom's, the Queen Mum's place. And in all these examples I'm giving, the skill with the maximum shelf life is creativity. When was the last time you did it? Remember, we're talking about building and starting a business and then ultimately selling it and exiting. When was the last time you did something creative with your business? When? When? After you started it. When? Because ideas are a dime a dozen. The person who puts them into action is priceless. I mean, these are cliches, almost. Not almost, they are cliches. But ladies and gentlemen, most of the things that I will talk about and have talked about and high-performance people actually take action on are cliches because they've been around since caveman. They've been around since caveman, and you've got to understand that. You understand, and the reason you don't enact these cliches that you've heard over the years and you've read is fear. Plain and simple. Only fear. The fear of what other people are going to say. Because if you're not the lead dog, your view never changes. As Lee Iacocca used to say, who said the biggest lie of all time when he stood in front of Congress in the early 80s and said he wanted $1 billion from the U.S. government on some special financing. He said, I can turn around Chrysler. And arguably, if Chrysler had gone down, General Motors and Ford would have been dramatically affected. And he said, I can turn it around. Now, there was no way he believed that at the time. But he says in commercials subsequent to that, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And by following means being different, not the same. And ladies and gentlemen, the same can be said of your business, whether it turns over 200,000 pounds or 20 million pounds. And unless you do that, this industry, the internet industry, is going to put you out of business. An example, Bill Gates grabbed the chance to buy the first operating system for IBM PCs. Tom Monahan built a Domino Pizza, the first nationwide home delivery. And McDonald's was first to offer fast service with consistency. And Disney opened the first theme park. I mean, these are all first. They're all so different. You don't have to invent anti-gravity or faster than light travel. Most different products and services are just a small twist on an old idea, but they are different. They are different. We used to do an exercise taking a business and seeing how you could make it different. I used to do an exercise, and you're going to get an opportunity to fill out a card at the end of the day. You tell me in 90 to 120 seconds your business idea, your revelation, your dream, your passion, your hope, and I will tell you in 90 or 120 seconds, 1, if it'll work. 2, if it won't work, how you can change it. Or 3, whether to put it in the bin. Now, I only used to do that exercise with a 95% probability of being correct. And whenever I told you your business was no damn good, you said, it's the 5%. It's the 5%. He's wrong about my business. And we used to keep track of the people in here. Big Brother, to see how many, when they went out of business, how they were successful. We stopped keeping track. In your heart of hearts, you know what you should do with your business. And walk away. I want you to get ruthless about doing something different. Some people say, precept of my life or my business philosophy is just to get ruthless, period. Maybe that's correct. But I know the probabilities of you being successful vis-a-vis you being docile, I know what they are. Are any of the high-performance people you read about docile? Are they? The answer is no. Then why is it so damn difficult for it to get within your skull and gray matter? Again, it's back to the fear, comfort, etc., etc. Is your idea discernible, first, different, interesting, neat, special? I added the neat and special because those are words currently being used by the big PR firms, the big Madison Avenue firms, I don't know what the hell it's neat means. Now, if you were, my 3 children were here, my youngest, my oldest, and my daughter, and you said, oh, you're special, God only made one of you, or Allah only made one of you, they'd all go, we're special because we think like our dad. It's true, God made me, God, Allah, whoever, only made one of you, but I'm not so sure he's so proud of it right now. That puckered him right up, Barry. I mean, big time. If eyes were guns, I'd be like right now. Is your idea weird enough? Now that's a word I understand. Because when I was young, I was a weird, cocky, loudmouth kid. And then I got successful. Then he was a weird, middle-aged guy. Now I'm eccentric. Nothing weird, nothing cocky. Some people would still say loudmouth, but I got too much success, so they don't say that anymore. Okay, now these people were all mad as hatters. Steve Jobs, Apple Computer, Michael Milken revolutionized junk bonds, Ted Turner, the mouth from the South, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Tom Edison, Henry Ford, Richard Branson, Freddie Laker, Alexander Graham Bell. Would you have hired any of these men, ladies, forgive me, there's no women on this list, would you have hired any of these men? And more importantly, would any of them come to work for you? The answer is no, no. And my answer is yes, yes. I would have given my left foot to work with any of these guys. And I know Jobs, I know Milken, I know the mouth from the South, I know Bill, I know Warren. I only met Mr. Branson once, and I've never met Sir Freddie. They tell me he's a real piece of work, but I never met him. And I'm not old enough, contrary to what my kids think, to know Tom Edison or Alexander Graham Bell or Henry Ford. Now, my benchmark is I like to hire weird people. The first thing I look at is energy of the individual. The second thing I look at is the business idea. The third thing I look at is raw, innate intelligence. And the fourth and last thing I look at are credentials. You know, double first, bullshit. I don't look at any of that. I don't care. I haven't asked anybody where they went to school or if they went to school in such a long time, I can honestly, with my hand on my heart, say, I can't remember when. I can't remember the last time anybody asked me if I went to university. If I went to graduate school. It's something that nobody gives a damn about. It's something that is measured only at the very embryonic stage of your career. And if you work with somebody like me, it's not even measured then. Trust your crazy ideas. Trust that lunacy that pops out every once in a while. Trust your instincts. Women are better at it than men. Trust that dream. Trust it. Go with the flow. Let the force be with you, as they said in Star Wars. Obi-Wan. Let the force... I believe in that stuff. And I also believe in ghosts because I live in a haunted big house. Hoose, as they say up in Scotland. And I just first, after all these years, saw one of the ghosts for the first time. About a year ago. Coming down the stairs from the boardroom. First time. My kids have seen him forever. They see him less now because it's like Santa Claus. They don't believe, everybody says that we didn't see any ghosts when we were growing up. So now one of them actually believes maybe they didn't. Then the other one slaps him around and says, what do you mean we didn't? We used to sit down there. Trust those crazy ideas. Spielberg and Lucas and a lot of these high-performance people still think like kids. They still think Santa Claus is around. They believe in the tooth fairy. When was the last time you started? When did you stop believing? My wife would, if she were here, and for the people that really know me in the audience, and there's only 2 or 3, I'm still a kid at heart. I like to do kids' things. I think I still can't die. I think I'm bulletproof. And that's why I almost got killed April the 8th this year. Because I didn't think, jumping off 40-foot cliffs in a dune buggy, I could get hurt. Guess what? I was wrong. I almost wound up dead. The people who think they are crazy enough to change the world are the ones that do. Bill Gates said, I want to put a computer in every home and business in America. And now they're revamping that original mission statement to include internet and World Wide Web and all that stuff. You know what Nike's mission statement is? To crush the competition. Full stop. And one of my good friends, Carl Yankowski, recently took over as chief executive of Reebok. And he says, Dan, they know how to do it. They know how to do it. If I had thought about it, I wouldn't have done the experiment. The literature was full of examples that said you can't do this. This was 1921 New York Times editorial about Robert Goddard's revolutionary rocket work, one of the fathers to modern rocket technology, or maybe the father. I mean, conventional wisdom has kept most of you from doing what you really want to do. And the educational system in this country bolsters that thought process, and in many regards hampers what I'm talking about. Do you have the guts to throw out today's winning product when you get a better idea? Let me ask you something. Why do we need new automobiles every year? Is it because the other ones fall apart? Why do we need new PCs every, I don't know what it is, 4 or 5 months or 4 or 5 weeks? New drives and new whatever the hell that they're run by? Why? Are they? Are they so better that we can't live without them? I don't think so. When was the last time you threw out a product that was profitable? What we do is we write down stuff. Our cost basis in the deal is 0, so why should we get rid of it? That's how we think from an accounting point of view. And that's just the opposite. You shouldn't think that way. And as Admiral Rickover, the mentor of Jimmy Carter, said, the father of atomic submarines, good ideas are not adopted automatically. They must be driven into practice with courageous patience. And much of the things I say very matter-of-factly don't happen very matter-of-factly. They happen over time. They happen over persistence, conscious persistence, and focus, laser beam focus. This methodology that I talk about so vehemently, so passionately, is my way of life. It's how I participate in sport. It's how I participate in business. It's how I participate as a father, a husband, a child. It's my life. I think in one way only. If I can't be first, I want to be different. And I want to operate at the highest level I can. The mentor of Ross Perot, Joe Batten, excuse me, I can't believe I almost forgot his name. He and I sat on a board together a few years ago. Has coined the phrase, the motto, or the mission statement for the United States Army recruitment program. It is, be all you can be. Now, I thought we were put on this earth, however we got here, no matter what you believe, to be all that we can be. Not to be a fraction of what we can be. Not to be, 2% or 5%. I know we only use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% of our brain power. It's to be all we can be. And that's what this, and I believe Mr. Branson and those gentlemen that I've talked about almost ad nauseum now, I know they believe that. By the way, you should hear them talk about this industry, i.e. the seminar business, and the people that teach it. They have a very interesting perspective about, as Donald Trump once told me at the MGM Hotel a few years ago, we were going up the lift, and he said, are you still trying to teach poor people how to be rich? And I said, yes. And that was the end. I mean, that's the only thing he said. And see, they think all the things that we're talking about, or you're listening and I'm talking, it's not like we're having a two-way conversation, are matter of fact. Because this isn't new information. It just isn't. Even the best can get it wrong. There's no reason anyone could want to... This is what Ken Olsen, 1977 chairman and founder of Digital Equipment, said. Even the best can get it wrong. There is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. That's just 22 years ago. There's even a better slide coming up. $640K ought to be enough for anybody. Now that is pretty damn wrong. Even I understand that now. How many times bigger are the current computer load? How many times bigger than 640K is there now? 5 million? Well, I mean a lot, right? Obviously, Bill, early in his career, didn't think that through. Now, the first time I read that several years ago, I thought he meant $640,000, 640K. That's what I thought. 1943, Tom Watson Sr., the chairman and former chairman and founder of IBM. I think there's a world market to support maybe 5 computer companies. Had it wrong. Just as in 1949, Popular Mechanics said, computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. This is conventional wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. This is conventional wisdom. Now, from chaos comes order. You heard me say earlier today that when I go into a business and I look at the founder, or the managing director, or some of the senior executives, and they tell me our business is running smoothly, I know they're dying. Because I realize from chaos comes order. The internet and World Wide Web and that market is so wrought with potential because it's chaotic. It's changing all the time. And as you create order in different little parts of it, niches, people are getting rich. The multiples in the internet companies are staggering. I heard a chief executive of one of the big internet companies with it's got 3 or 4 billion market cap. He says it would be I would be something to the effect, I would be overlooking my fiduciary responsibility if I planned us to make money anytime soon. Boy, and I've run big companies, PLCs, boy, I wish I could have gotten away with that. My shareholders would have drawn and quartered me and burned me at the stake, but I wasn't in that industry. From chaos comes order. If we wish to make a new world, we have the material handy. The first one, too, was made out of chaos. They're talking about the Big Bang Theory of how the universe started, and I'm not here to talk about that. The Chinese image. Before I get into this, do you realize that crisis... anybody speak or write Chinese in the audience? No. Well, the symbol for crisis and the symbol for opportunity in Chinese are the same. The same. Chinese have been around a long time. Before the beginning of great brilliance, there must be chaos. Before a brilliant person begins something great, they must look foolish in the crowd. This is the Qing image. This is the Chinese image for chaos. They must look foolish in the crowd. How many of us have been raised to look foolish in the crowd? I certainly wasn't. In this country, you certainly weren't, that I know of anyway. I certainly think that some of my neighbors up in Scotland certainly look foolish in the crowd when they've had a few drams, but they certainly weren't raised to be foolish. My caffeine high is getting... Thank you. When you tell Stuart Goldsmith you like double espressos, he remembers. No question about it. He remembers. Now, there was a gentleman named D. Hawk. How many know the name D. Hawk? Okay. He originally was the I don't know if he was president of Bank Americard, but he was with Bank Americard and it was not doing well. And then he came up with an idea where he was going to bring together 50, 60,000 banks that existed at that time with a concept called Visa. Everybody said he's crazy. Well, he did. Visa is the only trillion-dollar business that I'm aware of on the planet. He made a bunch of money, retired about 15 or so years ago, but he's just come out of retirement recently. He lives in Northern California on a walnut grove, and he coined the word chaotic. From chaos comes order. He says, if I'm able to bring these 55 or so thousand banks together with one concept, i.e. Visa, I mean, everybody's going to be a winner. And he was successful. A lot of money. Visa's obviously very successful. But how many of us look for chaos? I like chaotic industries. And I'm not here to talk about consolidation in the fragmented industries per se, but that's what I look for. Big margins, big markets, chaos, etc. And how do you find an area in which to make millions? Seek out chaos and bring order to it. You don't even have to bring total order. All you have to do is bring the perception of order, and you'll make a lot of money. Bring order. Example, I mean, most of the people in the audience know more about this than I do. The Internet. The Internet. I mean, that's what happened with General Motors. General Motors was 15, 20 different companies at one time. Consolidation of a fragmented industry. Railways. There used to be many different gauges even. I remember when I went public here, if I remember correctly, they asked me not to, or they suggested, the pundit said, don't use the word Great Western because I think it was one of the largest bankruptcies in the history of this country, Great Western Railway. And I said, well, what does what I do have anything to do with the railway? Most of the kids that are managing the billions here in the city don't even know about Great Western Railway. American Express, there used to be hundreds of different cards. I mean, find chaos, bring order. How many of you are in a business where you are in a chaotic business, Internet aside, and if you're not bringing order to that chaotic business, then you're missing a golden opportunity. See, we've been taught from the time we were little to stay away from chaos. Don't make waves, don't do this, don't chew gum, don't stand out, etc., etc. And it's just the antithesis of what it takes to be a high-performance person. They go into a chaotic industry, and one way or another, they attempt to bring order to it. Master the chaos that controls our world, and you will get super rich beyond your wildest imagination, and you can thank Stuart Goldsmith for it. Just keep buying his newsletter. Or no, buy it and give it to friends at Christmas. Now, Stuart's not asking me to say all this, but every time I look back there and he's got a big smile on his face, I can tell he likes it. Okay, power strategy number 3. There are no rules. Be prepared and willing to break all conventional wisdom rules. Now, this country, much more so than America, has a lot of conventional wisdom. A lot of conventional wisdom. It's been around a long, long time. I mean, you've had more years to deal with it. But I've been doing business here in Britain since 1981 and lived here since 84, and I've seen a lot of change. Now, where I live, I've seen virtually no change. I'm in a time warp. It's the 50s where I live. I'm talking about 1850, not 1950. Up where I live, I mean, it just... That big gate, the main gate at my home has been, I forget when it was built, but the last 30 years of the last century or something like that. And nothing's changed within those gates. And but break the rules. Be willing to stand up against conventional wisdom. Now, of the 17 Fortune 500 companies who had year-on-year growth of 35% or more, there's only 17 from 1986 to 1985. All 17 did one thing. And Phil Knight is on the cover of Fortune magazine that talks about this survey. They all thought outside the box and they all broke rules. And they were different or they changed their industry. Dell's in there, Gates is in there, Knight, but they're not all computer companies. I mean, it's surprisingly, but I mean, from '86 to '95, I mean, wasn't the big surge that we've had in the last few years. I'm pretty sure from '95 to 2004, whatever it was, is going to have a whole bunch of internet companies that are in there. Hopefully, they won't all be internet companies. I don't want you to listen to the purveyors of conventional wisdom. For example, this is the director of the U.S. Patent Office, 1899. Everything that can be invented has been invented, actually. Could have been British, this guy. Well, here's one. The Royal Society. Heavier than air flying machines are impossible, actually. And I asked Royal Society of what? And, to a British friend of mine, English friend of mine. He looked at me. What do you mean Royal Society of what? I mean, well, what are they the Royal Society of? He says, then that's the full name, full stop, the Royal Society. You should know that. And I said, well, I don't. Lord Kelvin. Who the hell wants to hear actors talk? Harry Warner. Well, that's the chairman of Warner Brothers. Babe Ruth was the home run king until Hank Aaron broke his record. He was a great pitcher. And Tris Speaker said in 1921, Babe Ruth made a big mistake when he gave up pitching. I mean, by the way, Babe Ruth, good example. Mistakes. He's known as a home run king until Mr. Aaron came along 20 years ago. But you know what he doesn't lead in home runs anymore, but that's what he's known for. But you know what he still to this day leads American baseball in? He has struck out more times than anybody that's ever played professional baseball. Babe Ruth. And nobody even remembers him for that record. The very thing that you fear the most, the failures in your life, you won't be remembered for. I have lost more money, in addition to all the money I've made, I have lost more money than the entire public speaking, stroke coaching, guru group cumulatively since the beginning of time also. Not just that I made more, I lost more. But nobody remembers me for that. Only way anybody even knows about it is when I talk about it. When I talk about almost single-handedly taking down TWA pension fund by myself. One man, one investment idea, 1974. I did the same with a couple other pension plans. One man, one idea, 1974. So I've gone through the continuum. But nobody's interested. It's not on the internet. It's not on, nobody's interested in all that. They're only interested in the other things. I tell you, it's like Freedom of Information Act. I tell you because of full disclosure. So the rule is start an industry or change an industry. Do not merely copy an industry. You must be different in some way. You've got to look at what you're doing and change it in some way. For those of you that are just cloning somebody else, that may work for a short period of time, but ultimately it's going to be like loose sand under your feet, and you're going to slip and fall and tumble and eventually perish from this earth. And again, I can't emphasize enough, the next millennium is going to be tough, a lot tougher than it is now. And I've got my own theory why Great Britain doesn't want to be part of the big currency. My own theory, which I didn't come to talk about, has to do with the competitiveness of various products and services. That's what I believe. And I believe the smart people, well, if they're smart, the people in government have figured this out. As Scott Olson, by the way, the founder and president of Rollerblade, who says nobody can teach you how to, nothing on earth prepares you to run a company that goes from $0 to $100 million in revenue. As soon as he went public, the venture capitalists threw him out and sent him on his way. He's since taken another company public in the U.S., and it's a company that's got a kind of a reverse bicycle. You lie on your back and you pedal the bike like this. and it's supposed to be less strain on your back. I don't know. I don't see how you see exactly, but anyway. But the bottom line is, they went public, made a bunch of money, they threw him out again. Apparently, he's fairly abrasive. It's hard for me to believe that, having been thrown out of a PLC myself, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that just because you're abrasive, you get tossed out. I remember, and when I talk to a lot of these chief executives that are no longer chief executives, one of the biggest things that they have, that they bemoan and they have bitterness about, is when their car and driver are taken away. I've been there, done that. I know what that feels like. Power strategy number 4. You cannot do it alone. If Ross Perot has a mentor and Bill Gates have a mentor, I mean, I don't see why anybody in this room would even not consider for a microsecond the mentor-mentee relationship. I don't. It would be beyond my comprehension. Now, you can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful idea in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality. Walt Disney was weird, considered a misfit, thrown out of the United States Army as a 4F, misfit, malcontent. Did all right for himself. Would he have come to work for you? Would you have hired him? Every time I mention one of these gentlemen's names, ask yourself, would he have come to work for you? Would you have hired him? In almost every case, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is no. And to make that shift in your mindset, to better appreciate and understand how this process works, your answer has to be categorically yes. At the very least, yes, I'd hire them. Maybe they wouldn't come to work for me, but I try to hire them. I recently hired a gentleman that I had fired 8 years ago because he was too aggressive. Sounds funny coming from me, but I sacked him from being too aggressive. He came back and I told him, do this, 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 and this, then come back and see me. He did it. Do this, 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 and this, and then come back. And finally came back and I said, okay. So I put him into a project in a company that I'm chairman of, and he's doing very well. But he's crazy. He is the runner-up. There's a boxing or a fighting in America where they put you in a cage and only one person goes out. Well, he was runner-up. He almost got beat to death, and he was runner-up. And this is not a sport you want to be runner-up. You want to be first. It's no good being different in that one. You got to be first. But I took him on, and I didn't tell any of my colleagues about his background. I wanted him to get through the process on his own. And he did. And then after he's on the payroll, at a board meeting, I tell everybody. And I mean, panic. Jesus. And then I told him that he had been arrested a few years ago for almost beating a policeman to death. Jesus! Well, what else has he done? What is he, Jack the Ripper? Well, since you mention it, he wasn't. But, I mean, this guy's big time weird. And I knew my fellow directors wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. Yet I was positive in my own heart that he could get the job done, and he has. Now, some of the mealy-mouthed directors I have, well, gee, maybe we should just hire a search firm to look for weird people. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, you idiot. I mean, now they want to build a strategy around weirdness. Unbelievable. And he's not even British. This guy's an American idiot. Okay, get yourself a dream team, get yourself a board of directors. This is giving you the perception of being more than you are. It's surrounding yourself with people that have been there, done that. Whether you've got a 100,000-pound company or a 100 million-pound company, it works. I can prove to you beyond a shadow of a doubt, and these are some of the things that happen to you when you get a board of directors. In some countries, there's a board of advisors. I mean, but the point is, there's a senior group of people to advise you. One, okay, you need to have this board of directors for the following reasons. One, perception is reality. I've already beat that to death. People will perceive you to be something that you're not. They'll perceive you to be ahead of the spot that you are on the learning curve only because you've surrounded yourself with this group. Two, They add credibility to your project or business. By definition, a bank, a venture capitalist, an accountancy firm, a firm of solicitors will think these people in the zenith of their careers would not attach themselves to you and your project unless they really believed in it. 3, they make it easier to raise lots of money, lots of OPM, by definition. Because the presumption is, again, they must feel great about your project and, more importantly, you, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And the way that you build on this dream team of directors or advisors is you get an anchor. It's like an anchor tenant. You get a chairman, somebody, doesn't necessarily have to be with a reputation like mine, but you get somebody that you can leverage off of, just as if you have 40% of a building leased or rented, occupied, it's easier to get the other 60% of the tenants, isn't it? The tough part is getting the first one. So you find a chairman, a non-executive chairman that will help you, and then you leverage off his reputation, and you go on to add the various other board members. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. It's the only thing, commitment. The Manhattan Project, which I like to use as an analogy, they were given one mission. Develop a bomb of mass destruction that will end the war in the Pacific. Full stop. That's all they were told. Then they got some of the, well, we had half of all the brains, and the Russians scarfed up the other German half. And so, unfortunately, we came up with a deal before they did. But that's, you know, and there's a whole story. And the Manhattan Project is a great analogy, because we thought they weren't sure was it going to be a bomb of implosion or explosion, and there's all kinds of things that happened that they found out by accident as they worked through the project. And it's a great example of a small group of committed men that accomplished a great, great deal. How do you get these people? Well, first of all, you dry your hands off before you shake hands with them, for starters. And in this country, we take them to the Reform Club, actually. I take the piss out of it, but I mean, there are certain things about this country that are absolutely phenomenal that no other place does it exist. But I mean, you do take them to the Reform Club, or you're a friend of yours that belongs to the Reform Club, or the Oxford Club, or the Cambridge, whatever the damn club, or the London Capital Club that I belong to, and you take them there, and because everybody in this room knows somebody that belongs to one of these deals, or is part of one of these groups. You can't live here without knowing somebody that's part of one of those deals. You just can't. Unless you're down in some island off the Shetlands and you never left there before, and then that's a whole other thing, and I don't think anybody's from there. But or if you've never stepped out of your little time warp. Okay, this is how we do it. Now, you give away part of your dream. I would rather have 70% of a 100 million or a 20 million pound company than 100% of nothing, or 100% of a 500,000 pound company. So you start, and for example, Bill Gates only made his company public so he could give away the wealth and share the wealth with his employees. Ross Perot, who just took Perot Systems public, only owned 40% of Perot Systems. When he took EDS public, he only owned 40%, and the employees owned 60%. All these fellas give away part of the pie. It's teamwork, has less ego and more we-go. We're going to get to a slide that I love about ego, but we'll wait. I won't get ahead of my thunder. And how do you do this? My recommendation, you give 1 to 5% of each of the directors. 5% if they're going to take an active role, 1% if they're just going to be names on the note paper. And so you wind up giving 20, 25, 30% away at the end of the day. And I can give you countless examples of how it works. Countless, I mean, all the big names that you talk about. For example, the number 3, 4, and 5 guy from American Telephone and Telegraph in the last year and a half have left AT&T to join small startup internet companies. They walk away from 6, 8, 900,000, $1.2 million a year in compensation for $50,000 a year plus a big chunk of the stock or options. Now, all three of those guys, and I can't remember their names, 3, 4, and 5 guy from American Telephone and Telegraph, the poorest one, they're all public now, they're companies, the poorest one is worth $140 million in stock. The richest one is worth $350 million in stock. That's why they leave. That's why they go. And that's why they'll do this. The concept of giving away shares to the directors in this country is so foreign, I virtually have never been turned down. I mean, their eyes, roll back in their little Etonian heads, and their tongues get stiff. I mean, nobody in this room has met with more chief executives of PLCs than I have, and I mean to a man. Same thing. The culture here is to be a main board director, car and a driver, full stop. It's not to get filthy rich where you got so much money you got to weigh it instead of count it. And you men and women in this audience know that better than I do. In America, nobody gives a damn if you're a main board director. Just give me the money. It's like that movie, Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. And I met with a guy, 2 examples. And I got to be a little loose on the numbers because otherwise you might figure out who it is. A recently sacked chief executive took the company from $350 million in turnover to 2.6 billion pounds in turnover. Took the company public, put a short 1.3 billion pounds in the founder's pocket. Got sacked. You know his name too. I had drinks with him not too long ago. And I said, did they take your car and driver yet? And he said, no, they haven't. But he's worried about it, believe me. Another example. A year ago, Star of the City had one of the most successful breakups of a PLC in history of the city, made almost 700 million pounds for the shareholders. Was signed up to have a bonus based on his success of 2 million quid. I'm talking to him about another deal. He says, you know, they're going to give me a slagging in the newspaper about my 2 million. Oh, forget about it. You make almost 700 million pounds for the shareholders? Boy, was I wrong. Ooh, they had a go at him. They really gave him a slagging at the AGM, da-da-da-da. And at the end of the day, he only got 1 million. Now, if you had made 700 million pounds, about $1.3 billion for shareholders in America, and you didn't walk away with between $50 and $75 million, I'd kill myself for you. This system works because, there's one more example. Another guy, big PLC, he had taken 5 of the divisions public, rolled them out, 300 million to $1.2 billion, 800 million to $3 billion, ba 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 ba. And his shares, when he got sacked, were worth 24,000 pounds. And he's 53 years old. When you offer them, believe you me, at the end of the day, they'll kiss your arse. Now, you have to have a track record of success so the people around you, he's not going to just let some stumblebum that comes in from Liverpool to sell him a load of shite. You have to have put together a group that makes sense with an idea that makes sense. And the numbers have to stack up. But given those, you don't have to worry about building a team around you. Even the likes of you. Number 3, ask many retired senior executives would they be flattered. That's an understatement. But the good ones, and the words that you should hear from their lips, as long as I can make a contribution, Dan. Those are the magic words you want to hear. As long as you can make a contribution. Asking is the key. Do not imagine everyone will be too busy to deal with you. Believe me. Princess Di complained many times of intense loneliness because of all her friends thought she would be far too busy to see them. The phone never rang, and she spent a lot of lonely hours, etc., etc. My wife served on a board, Save the Age with Princess Di, so I can verify some of that, and and many of the top stars would say the same thing. You can do it. Now in America, the concept of equity isn't such a new one. But in this country, in the Netherlands, in Germany, it's absolutely never heard of. I mean, it's even less than this country. Okay, now, these people that you're surrounding yourself with, employees, colleagues, partners, directors, etc., there's only three things they want to know. One, can I trust you? Two, do you have the high standards? And three, you care about me. And that's about as touchy-feely as I get. And I don't mean care in a wishy-washy guru, you know. I don't mean that way. It means, will you do the right thing by me, you know, when push comes to shove? And the answer is yes, and should be yes. And you should build your reputation on that you do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is suing the FT. Sometimes the right thing is sacking somebody. Sometimes the right thing is paying the spouse, the significant other, after your partner dies, which I've done. I took a real slagging when I ran a company here. Partner died, and I paid the wife for 2.5 years his compensation package. And the board never wanted to vote on it. Of course, when the shit hit the fan, must be the chairman, they'd always tabled the issue because nobody wanted to be on the spot of voting for it. Everybody knew we were doing it. So who did they? Well, that's all right. I have broad shoulders. I handled that. But the right thing is what I'm suggesting that you do. Never the wrong thing. Always start on the high plane. You'll soon enough get in the gutter where the other side gets in the gutter. But always start on the high road. And I talk like this because I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. And when you deal with these people, these potential directors, these potential partners that are going to help be your mentor or quasi-mentor, you've got to talk with conviction. They don't want you to talk, yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, what do you think? No. They want to know what you think. That's why they're drawn to you. They're drawn to you because of your energy. Now you say, well, Dan, that's easy for you to say. But I've been like this a long, long time because I've practiced it, remember? There's something out there more important than ego. I want it hunted down and killed immediately. They want you to have an ego. And a British ego is different than an American ego. We all know that. Again, you don't have to be Dan Peña's. Like one of the great guys, Sir James Goldsmith, until he passed away. I mean, he was a great idol of mine. I mean, of course, I always thought any guy that can have his wife live next door to his girlfriend and have all these kids and everybody, I mean, is my idol. I mean, forget about it. I mean, this guy knew something I didn't, obviously. No, but seriously. I mean, you've got, I mean, the country, the history of the country is just wrought with examples like that. Power strategy number 5. How do you create an instant track record? This should be pretty simple, even for being here in England. You leverage off the track records of others. Very simple. How did I get a track record in the beginning? I leverage off of NASA Shipping Line's track record with Mr. Gratsos, Mr. Ormond. Very simple. I leverage off the track record of Freshfields. I leverage off the track record of Morgan Grenfell, now Deutsche Morgan Grenfell. I mean, it's pretty simple, really. I levered off the track record of PwC, E&Y, Anderson's. That's why it's worth the premium to pay the big 5 accountings, the 30% more they get, or the 40% more they get, because you get their track record, you get their network. When I wanted to go into the gold business, the then Coopers and Lyman put on their worldwide web, whatever, and I was down in Santiago, Chile, looking at a heap leaching, gold heap leaching project within a few weeks, because they had a client down there. And I mean, if you use Smith & Smith, chartered accountants, 5 guys in the shop, I mean, you don't get that. How does Dave Reeker, that runs the publishing company that I'm chairman of, how did he get a track record? He leveraged off mine. Now he's building his own track record. Done 4 or 5 acquisitions. helped to build a $120 million company. Of course, it also accrues to my track record. It's just one of the many things that I've done. It's not difficult. It isn't. And in this country, there are men and women that are willing to do this with you.